Hi there, folks, and welcome to Tri-State From the Stretch. I'm your host, Andy Burdick, and I'm flying solo tonight because we have some important news coming out of Pittsburgh. Today, the Pittsburgh Pirates completed a trade with the New York Mets to acquire outfielder Marlon Byrd and catcher John Buck for infielder Dilson Herrera and a player to be named later. Now, let's start out analyzing this trade by looking at Dilson Herrera. Herrera's a 19-year-old wispy second baseman. He's about 5'10", 150 pounds. Not a lot to him. He's got a great bat, though. His downside, he doesn't have a great arm. Not maybe the strongest prospect defensively. But this season, he's hitting .265, .330, .421 in Single-A West Virginia. And again, this is as a 19-year-old. He has 11 home runs, 27 doubles, and 11 stolen bases in 109 games. All of his games this season have come at second base or designated hitter. 104 of those games were at second base, 5 at DH. I had him ranked as the 17th best prospect for Tri-State of Mind baseball. Most outlets had him ranked somewhere around 12 to 15 in that range. So he's a decent prospect in a very deep system. It's tough to let that upside go because you always like to dream on what a prospect can become. But for a team like the Pittsburgh Pirates, who have a very deep farm system, it makes sense for them to make a move like this. Pittsburgh had the depth. They saw themselves reeling and falling out of that top spot in the division to the point where they're now actually half a game back of St. Louis going into tonight. It made sense for them to make a move to improve themselves. And Byrd is an improvement immediately, regardless of what you think of him. Pittsburgh's outfield, particularly in right field, had been suffering all season long. Now with Starling Marte out, we've had Felix P.A. filling in, and their roster's getting stretched thinner and thinner. So it got to the point where it almost seemed like fans were expecting Neil Huntington to do something. Now, starting off with Byrd, if we're looking at Byrd is not a financial obligation, really. He's making $700,000 this season, which if you prorate that to the remainder of the season, he's going to be making about $130,000 for the rest of the season. Looking at John Buck's salary, he was signed to a 3-year, $18 million deal. This is the last year of that deal. This season, he's making $6 million. So again, Pittsburgh's going to be on the hook for about $1.1 million of that salary. Now, if you're looking at Byrd from an analytic point of view, he was suspended last season for steroid use. This season, he's currently hitting .285, .330, .518. He's got a lot of pop in his bat. And like I said, he's going to be an immediate upgrade to right field, which hadn't been producing at all. Right field has hit .232, .297, .369, primarily between Jose Tabata, Travis Snyder, and Garrett Jones. There's not a lot of downside to Byrd when you're talking about sticking him in there. As a 36-year-old, well, he's going to be turning 36 on Friday, and Pittsburgh's off the hook from his contract at the end of the season. There's really not that much risk for them. And anything is an upgrade on what they've been running out in right field day in and day out. Now, Buck seems to be almost more of a security play for Pittsburgh. My guess is Pittsburgh probably didn't feel overly comfortable with the thought of Russell Martin going down and having to have Tony Sanchez and whoever else they were going to try and find to fill in for Sanchez as the backup when he became the full-time starter. Buck's nothing special. He's 33 years old. He has a lot of pop in his bat. His pop seems to come in spurts, especially this season. He hit 10 home runs over a 25-game stretch to start off the year, scorching at the beginning of the year. But since May 1st, he's hitting .206, .290, .302 with 6 home runs. Again, it seems to be like a security move. You have McHenry out for the rest of the season with his torn meniscus. You get a little bit of pop with John Buck. No, it's nothing sexy. It's nothing. Buck relative to Marlon Byrd, he's a footnote in this trade relative to Pittsburgh's upgrade in the outfield with Byrd. Now, in order to make room on their roster, the Pirates have designated utility man Russ Kanzler, and they placed Kyle McPherson on the 60-day DL. You have to think, again, being a half game back of the Cardinals at this point, regardless of whether he's going to admit it or not, Neil Huntington probably had to feel somewhat pressed to make a move. Now, the only thing that kind of shocked me about this is that the Reds, who are behind Pittsburgh in this division, didn't put a claim in on Byrd to even try and block him from going to Pittsburgh. I was kind of surprised. You'll see that a lot in baseball, where those competing teams will put those claims in regardless of whether they want the player or not, just to make sure that the teams they're competing with don't end up with those players. But for Pittsburgh, I think it's a move that you have to make if you're in the position that they're in. They need that upgrade, and again, regardless of what you think of Byrd as a person, regardless of what anybody thinks of him as a player, he's going to be an upgrade over what they have been running out there. And especially with Starling Marte on the DL, Pittsburgh needed to do something. I like it. It's an aggressive move. I'm very disappointed to see Dilson Herrera go, but I think Pittsburgh needed to do something. They can't just stand pat and keep letting those losses in those games keep piling up and falling farther and farther behind. That's going to be it today for Tri-State from the Stretch. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to talking to you soon.